Our grandparents had no high-tech gadgets, no chemical clubs from the supermarket, and yet their house was clean, their laundry fresh, and their everyday life simpler than one thinks. Today, I show you 45 ancient household hacks that are so clever that you'll ask yourself, why does almost no one do that today anymore? If you want to discover more of Grandma's genius household hacks, subscribe to the channel now, and let's get started right away. Streak-free windows. Back then, Grandma and Grandpa swore by a recipe that was as simple as it was genius. Warm water, a little vinegar, and a dash of methylated spirits, that's all it took. While today's sprays often leave streaks, this mixture turned windows into radiant mirrors. The decisive thing was the polishing. Old newspapers rustled in the hand, the glass began to squeak, and that's when you knew it was really clean. A touch of nostalgia combined with the clarity of a sun-flooded room. Remove coffee stains. A spilled coffee on the Sunday shirt was no drama back then. First came cold water, which rinsed the fresh stain out of the fibers. Then Grandma rubbed in a little dish soap and let it act briefly. If a dark edge showed, she resorted to vinegar water. Grandpa, on the other hand, swore by a pinch of baking soda, stirred into a paste that dissolved even stubborn spots. In the end, everything went into the wash tub, and the garment looked like new again. Simple means great effect. Clean burnt pots. A burnt pot didn't mean the end of the cooking evening back then. Instead, it was filled with water, a piece of coarse soap in it, and already the mixture was allowed to simmer quietly on the stove. After a few minutes, the black loosened from the bottom, and with a wooden spoon, the remnants were gently scraped off. Grandpa swore by a pinch of baking soda, which worked like magic. Sometimes, a dash of vinegar came in addition, which not only cleaned but also took the smell. In the end, the pot gleamed like new. Polish silver cutlery. When the silver cutlery lost its shine, a small ritual began at the kitchen table. A soft cloth, a dab of toothpaste, and with calm movements, Grandma rubbed away the dark coatings. Piece by piece, the old shimmer returned. Sometimes Grandpa laid the spoons in a bowl, lined with aluminum foil, filled with hot water, salt, and baking soda. As if by itself, the black disappeared, and back remained bright silver that sparkled in the light. On holidays, it then shone like a treasure that never lost value. Make copper pots shine. Copper pots had the rank of jewelry in many kitchens. Their warm glow was an eye-catcher, but they demanded care. A spoon of ketchup on a cloth was enough to make matte spots disappear. The acid did its work, and after rinsing, the pot shone like new. Grandpa preferred lemon juice with a bit of salt, a mixture that dissolved the spots in no time. In the end, the pots were carefully dried, so they hung polished clean on the wall and gave the kitchen dignity. Remove grease stains from clothing. A grease stain on the blouse didn't mean it was lost back then. Quickly, a little potato flour or chalk was sprinkled over it. The powder drew the oily trace from the fabric. After a few hours, a brushing sufficed, and the spot was almost forgotten. Grandma gladly resorted to gall soap, while Grandpa swore by dish soap in lukewarm water. Even old stains could be tamed with a paste of baking powder. Then the piece went into the wash tub and came clean, almost like new back. Clean microwave. A look into the microwave after a long day could be sobering. Dried splatters and grease stains stuck to the walls, but it didn't need a special cleaner. A bowl with water, a few lemon slices in it, and already the steam began its work when heating. The glass fogged, the remnants loosened as if by themselves. Afterward, a cloth was enough, and the interior gleamed again. Grandpa sprinkled a bit of cinnamon in addition so the scent stayed in the kitchen. Simple, fast, and amazingly effective. Prevent bathroom mold. Moisture was always the enemy of a clean bathroom. To not give mold a chance at all, Grandma resorted to a simple mixture of water and vinegar. With that, she sprayed the shower curtain, wiped over the joints, and let everything dry. Grandpa made sure that after showering, the window was opened wide, even in winter. So the air stayed fresh, the walls clean, and the curtain free of dark spots. Small hand motions that kept rooms bright and healthy. Care for wooden furniture. A good wooden table was more than just a piece of furniture. It was the meeting point of the family. To keep its warm shine, one stirred a mixture of olive oil and lemon juice in the kitchen. With a soft cloth, the oil was rubbed into the wood. The juice took small spots and left freshness. Grandpa gladly resorted to beeswax, which protected even deeper. In the end, the surface gleamed in the shine of the light. So cabinet, chest, and table remained preserved over generations. Refresh carpets. A carpet was more than floor covering back then. It was the center of the living room. To keep it fresh, one sprinkled dried tea leaves over it and let them do their work. The scent pulled into the fibers while dust and odors were bound. After knocking out, the carpet acted as revived. The colors shone again. Grandpa gladly took cornstarch, which even pulled out fat. And every weekend, one worked outside with the beater. It was cleaning and ritual at the same time, a piece of lived house culture. Vinegar as fabric softener. In the laundry room, there was no colorful fabric softener bottle, but a simple glass bottle with vinegar. A small dash in the last rinse cycle was enough, and the laundry came soft and fresh from the drum. The vinegar dissolved soap remnants, kept the colors shining, and ensured that towels kept their absorbency. Grandma swore by this method, while Grandpa saw the lime edges in the machine dwindle with satisfaction. So not only the clothing stayed longer beautiful, also the wash tub smelled always clean and clear. Baking soda against odors. An unassuming powder always stood ready in the cabinet. Baking soda. A spoon of it could work wonders. If the shoes smelled after a long day, one sprinkled it in and let it act overnight. In the morning, the odor was gone. Also in the refrigerator often stood a small bowl that quietly neutralized all scents. Grandma sometimes gave it in the wash water so the laundry smelled fresh again. So from a simple powder became a constant helper in everyday life. Keep wool sweaters soft. A wool sweater was a small treasure back then, often hand-knitted and worn with pride. To keep it soft, it didn't go into the machine, but into a bowl of lukewarm water. A dash of baby shampoo sufficed, gently pressed, never rubbed. For rinsing, Grandma added a hint of hair conditioner. The fibers absorbed the care. Then the piece lay flat on a towel, carefully pulled into shape, and dried in the air. Warm, soft, durable. Remove sweat stains. A yellow shadow under the armpits didn't mean the shirt was lost back then. Grandma stirred from baking powder and a bit of water, a thick paste that she gently brushed on the affected spot. Sometimes she drizzled a little lemon juice in addition. Then the whole thing was allowed to act in peace. The sun did its part if the shirt hung outside on the line. Grandpa swore that the spots disappeared so by themselves. In the end, the garment looked fresh and almost new again. Make zipper smooth. A jamming zipper was no reason back then to throw the jacket in the corner. One resorted to the candle, stroked a bit of wax over the teeth, and pulled the closure a few times up and down. Already it ran smoothly again. Grandpa used for that gladly a piece of soap or even the lead of a pencil. These small hand motions extended the lifespan of every jacket and every bag. It was almost like magic, and yet it was just plain knowledge that made everyday life easier. Sort socks. The secret of complete sock pairs lay not in the washing machine, but in the preparation. Before washing, one pinned the two with a small safety pin together, so they came together out again as they had gone in. Grandma always had a glass full of pins at hand, while Grandpa was proud if no single pair was missing. Some put the socks also in small laundry bags to be on the safe side. In the end, they hung neatly next to each other on the line, ready for the next week. Dry towels faster. A towel that doesn't dry quickly loses its fresh scent. Therefore, small loops were sewn on, so it hung neatly on the hook, and the air could play freely around it. Grandma did that with firm yarn, a few stitches, and much patience. On the line, the towels fluttered then in the wind, or they lay in winter close to the stove on a wooden frame, so they stayed soft, clean, and ready for use. Simple solutions that made everyday life easier and didn't let odor arise at all. Clean silk. A silk scarf was a piece of luxury in everyday life, light as a breath, and yet sensitive like hardly any other fabric. It was washed not with powder from the pack, but in a bowl of lukewarm water, to which a drop of baby shampoo was added. With calm hands it was moved, never rubbed. Afterward, a splash of vinegar in the rinse water helped so the colors stayed shining. To dry, it lay flat on a towel, far from sun and heat. So silk stayed long, radiantly beautiful. Remove red wine stains. A spilled glass of red wine was no world end at family celebrations. Immediately, one reached for the salt bowl and sprinkled generously over the stain. The white powder soaked the red liquid greedily up. Sometimes a dash of mineral water came in addition, that loosened the color and drove it outward. Afterward, the spot was gently treated with gall soap and finally put in the wash tub. Grandpa then gladly told that patience and a bit of salt had already saved many a precious tablecloth. And he was right. Refresh curtains. When spring came into the house, it was time for fresh curtains. They were carefully moved in lukewarm water with a dash of vinegar, which dissolved the gray veil and made the colors lively again. For white curtains, sometimes a splash of lemon juice came in addition, then they shone almost like new. Afterward, one hung them right damp at the window so the folds disappeared by themselves. Grandpa opened the windows wide, and the wind billowed the fabric. The whole room acted immediately brighter. Neutralize refrigerator odor. Between butter, cheese, and remnants from the Sunday roast, a heavy odor could quickly make itself broad in the refrigerator. Instead of expensive means, one resorted to something simpler. A small bowl with baking soda stood unassuming in the compartment and took everything that disturbed. Sometimes it was also freshly ground coffee powder or a half apple spiked with cloves. Every few weeks, the bowl was renewed, and the refrigerator smelled neutral again, so every food stayed with its own taste. Keep onions fresh. In many pantries, stockings hung from the ceiling filled with onions, each one separated from the next by a knot, so air could circulate and the vegetables stayed dry. For weeks, sometimes months, they kept their freshness. No mold, no sprouting, only the strong scent that filled the storage room. Grandpa swore by the cool cellar while Grandma neatly labeled the long stockings. This simple system preserved the harvest, made it ready at hand at any time, and showed what clever storage really looked like. Keep apples fresh longer. In the cellar, the boxes full of apples lay in autumn. Next to them, the potatoes from the last harvest. Together, they kept fresh longer because the tubers released a gas that delayed the ripening process of the fruits, so the apples stayed crunchy even if snow already fell outside. Grandma often laid straw between the layers so no pressure spots arose. Grandpa checked regularly and sorted out bad pieces. The scent of apples and earth filled the room and promised supply security for the winter. Protect bread from mold. A fresh loaf of bread was a small treasure back then that had to be treated carefully. To not let it mold too quickly, one put a piece of celery or a half apple in the bread box. The moisture kept the bread soft, without it becoming clammy. Wrapped in a linen cloth or kept in a heavy clay pot, it stayed edible for days. Grandpa wiped the bread box regularly with vinegar water so no spores survived, so the supply held and no crumb was lost. Store cheese. Cheese was more than food, it was a piece of stock that was treated with care. Wrapped in wax paper or parchment, it could breathe and still stayed protected. So it kept its consistency without sweating like in plastic. Sometimes it was put in stoneware jars that kept cool and even moisture. For hard varieties, Grandma moistened a cloth with vinegar water that kept the mold away. Opened one the pantry, this strong scent streamed toward one, familiar and promising. Refresh old bread. A hard loaf of bread was no reason back then to throw it away. One moistened the crust lightly with water and pushed it for a few minutes into the hot oven. Soon it smelled again of fresh baked goods. The crust cracked, the interior became soft. For individual slices, a moist cloth sufficed that was laid briefly in the oven. Grandma made from old bread also dumplings or soup. Nothing was lost. So every bite was appreciated, and thrift got a warm scent. Make herbs durable. In many kitchens, whole bundles of parsley, thyme, or sage hung upside down from the ceiling beams back then. The scent filled the room and promised spice for the winter. Other herbs were finely chopped, filled in small molds, and frozen poured with oil, so one had fresh aromas at hand even in the barren months. Grandpa loved to throw a cube directly into the pan when cooking. These simple methods kept the harvest alive and made from stock pure taste happiness. Keep milk fresh longer. Fresh milk was precious back then, and one did everything to make it durable longer. A tiny hint of salt sufficed to break the germs and keep the drink fresh a few days. Stored it was in the cool cellar, sometimes also in a stoneware jug that was placed in a well. If it became slightly sour, it still found use, about for quark, pancakes, or bread. Grandma then gladly said that in the kitchen nothing is lost if one acts cleverly. Decrystallize honey. If the honey in the glass became hard and grainy, that didn't count as blemish, but as sign of its authenticity. With calm and a simple knack, one got it liquid again. The glass came into a warm water bath, never boiling, only gently warmed. Slowly the crystals dissolved, and the golden sweetness flowed again clear. Sometimes the honey stood also on the stove edge while the soup simmered. Quite incidentally, it returned to its old form, fragrant and full of original power. Extract more juice from citrus fruits. A lemon was too valuable back then to leave it half empty. Before one cut it open, one rolled it firmly over the table until it gave under the hand. So the interior broke up and the juice flowed easier. Sometimes one laid the fruits briefly in hot water, then they gave even more. Grandpa swore to let them lie on the warm windowsill. Every drop found its way into lemonade, cake, or tea. Nothing of it was allowed to be lost. Onion juice against cough. If the cough didn't want to give way, the onion came on the table. It was cut small, sprinkled with sugar, and then left standing in a bowl. Already after short time, a sweet syrup formed that was taken with the spoon. Children pulled a face first, but the effect let them soon sleep calmer. Grandma meant always that in this simple mixture more power stuck than in many a bottle from the pharmacy, and often he kept right with that. Quark raps against swellings. If a knee swelled after playing or a sting throbbed, the way didn't go to the pharmacy, but to the refrigerator. A spoon of quark was thickly brushed on a linen cloth and carefully laid on. The cool spread immediately took the heat and alleviated the pain. As soon as the quark became warm, fresh supply came. Children lay still, fascinated by the unfamiliar feeling. Grandpa called it healing from the pantry, and he was right. Simple home medicine, comforting and effective at the same time. Sage tea against sore throat. If the throat scratched and every syllable hurt, one didn't immediately grab for pastilles. A few of them were poured with hot water. The scent spread in the kitchen. One drank the tea slowly, let it glide down the throat, or gargled lukewarm so it acted directly where it burned. Grandpa swore by its power, Grandma by the warmth in the voice afterward. A medicinal herb, plain and effective. Chamomile steam for colds. If the nose was clogged and the head throbbed, a steam helped that scented of chamomile. A bowl with hot water stood on the table, in it the flowers that released their oils. A towel over the head, and already the warmth rose, laid itself like balm on the mucous membranes. The breathing fell lighter. The eyes had to stay closed, but the relaxation was noticeable. Grandma murmured soothingly beside, while the steam acted. It was healing and security in one. Apple cider vinegar against mosquito bites. Summer evenings in the garden brought not only sociability, but also mosquito bites. The itching could drive one almost crazy. But help was quickly found. A small cotton wool, soaked in apple cider vinegar, was gently pressed on the skin. The light acid took the itching. The swelling went back, and one could sit calm again. Grandma swore even by a spray bottle with diluted vinegar that always stood ready. So the evening stayed undisturbed, and the kitchen delivered the simplest medicine against annoying plague spirits. Arnica salve. A small pot of arnica salve belonged in every house pharmacy back then. After a fall, a bruise, or a hard workday, it was thinly applied and gently rubbed in. The skin absorbed the warmth, the flower power of the arnica promoted the circulation, alleviated swellings, and let blue spots disappear faster. Children with grazed knees got it just like adults with aching joints. Grandpa often meant the nature holds the best medicine ready, and in this case, he had no doubt right. Peppermint oil against headaches. If the head throbbed and every sound was too much, one didn't immediately reach for tablets. A few drops of peppermint oil on the temples, gently rubbed in, and already a cool freshness spread. The scent rose into the nose. The menthol let the skin tingle. The tension gave way slowly. Grandma held sometimes a cloth with the oil to the forehead and breathed deep in. It was a small bottle, almost unassuming, and yet it brought noticeable relief. Warm potato compress. Cooked potatoes were not only for dinner, they could also donate warmth like hardly anything else. Were they steaming, beaten in a cloth, and lightly crushed, they transformed into a compress that streamed deep into the body. On the chest, it helped with cough, at the ear with pain, on the belly against cramps. Grandma swore by its gentle, even warmth. Children lay wrapped in blankets while the potato packet did its work. Simple house medicine, comforting and effective at the same time. Gargle salt water. If the throat burned and every swallow hurt, one didn't immediately reach for pastilles. A glass warm water, a half-spoon salt, more was not needed. From that arose a simple solution that alleviated inflammations and calmed the throat. One gargled slowly, let the water act, and spat it out again. Already after a few rounds the breathing became easier. Grandpa swore that salt and water often were stronger than any medicine. And he knew what he spoke of. Honey milk. A glass warm milk with honey was more than just a drink, it was a piece of security. The milk was not allowed to boil, only gently warmed so the honey kept its power. A spoon stirred in, and already the sweet scent spread. Children drank it before going to sleep. The throat calmed, the body became heavy. Grandma said it is medicine and comfort at the same time. Whoever knew this mixture knew how warmth tastes, simple, mild, and effective, deep into the night. Door snake against drafts. In winter, the draft was the secret thief of warmth. So it didn't sneak under the doors. One sewed long fabric rolls, filled with rice, sand, or old fabric remnants. These door snakes were laid in front of the gap and kept the cold outside while inside the warmth stayed. Some were plain, others colorful, and almost like small pets that kept watch. Grandpa called them his cheapest heating. And indeed, with such a simple helper, every room became immediately cozier. Remove lime. White edges at the faucet or in the cooker were no reason for worry back then. One resorted to the vinegar bottle, soaked a cloth, and laid it overnight on the crusted spots. In the morning, the lime dissolved almost by itself, back remained blank metal. For pots, one gladly took lemon juice that not only cleaned but also smelled fresh. Grandma swore by baking powder, stirred to a paste. It was simple, effective, and made kitchen and bath shine again, completely without chemistry. Drive away ants. If ant trails pulled cross through the kitchen, one didn't resort to poison, but to simple means. A line of chalk often sufficed to stop them. Vinegar water destroyed their trails, and the biting smell kept them away. Lemon peels or a bit of cinnamon in front of the door did the rest. Grandpa laughed when the animals suddenly turned around, as if they had forgotten the way. With patience and home remedies, the pantry stayed clean and the nature was respected instead of fought. Three Sisters Principle in the Garden. In the garden, there was an ancient principle that always proved itself. Maize, beans, and squash grew side by side. Every plant took its role. The maize stood upright and offered the beans hold. The beans gave nutrients back to the soil. The squash spread its big leaves, kept the moisture, and covered the weed. So a small community arose that was stronger than every plant alone. Grandpa called it the Three Sisters, and they gave rich harvest year after year, eggshells as fertilizer. Grandma didn't throw away eggshells. She rinsed them out, let them dry, and then crushed them with an old mortar to fine powder. This sprinkling around the beds was as self-evident to her as watering. Tomatoes and roses got an extra portion of strength. The soil became richer and stayed healthy. Sometimes part of the shells also went to the compost, where they acted slowly further. From kitchen remnants became food for the garden. And so the old hacks show us that often the simplest things make our life easier. Many of them are almost forgotten, yet they work to this day, reliable, clever, and with a touch of warmth. If you like this video and want to discover more treasures from Grandma's and Grandpa's times, then leave a subscription and activate the bell. Share the video with friends who also have joy in such tips. So, old knowledge stays alive.